I think that Documenta asks some very important questions. One of the leitmotifs is modernity, our antiquity, and this really interested me very much. I have to say that I was somewhat disappointed that the exhibition part of Documenta didn't make that question come alive as much as it might have for me. I think that there were many efforts made to place artwork close to, place one artwork close to another artwork and allow them to speak to each other in some way. But and there's artwork from, of course, all over the world, as well as artwork that spans maybe 4 decades. There's art from the 60s and all the way through to the present. But one of the problems for really being able to enter into this dialogue as effectively as perhaps one might want to is that the curators decided not to include very much information about each artwork on the wall or in some other form that was easily accessible to the exhibition goer. So unfortunately, it's very difficult in some cases to even know what country people are practicing in. One can make a guess, but it's sometimes very difficult to tell. And while you know what year the artwork was made, you may not necessarily know what the art discourse was in that particular country at that time, or in that particular part of a country at that particular time.
Yeah, but wasn't their aim to liberate you from all this?
Yeah. So I guess that there's a few words somewhere that says that was their aim, to liberate the viewer and to emphasize the. I believe that they use the term aesthetic, the aesthetic experience, and to somehow or another remove the authority, I suppose, of the text from this experience of the artwork. Personally, I find that a really troubling proposition. I tried to be open-minded about it, but I found myself very frustrated. I think that when people go to see a work, there's a couple of things that are operating. One is your curiosity, and there might be something in a piece that makes you very curious. And maybe that curiosity sets up some internal dialogue, but maybe that curiosity also makes you ask questions about what does that artwork refer to in the environment in which it was produced, or what does it refer to in terms of the larger international discourse that it's trying to respond to. And without there being any of that information on the wall, it's very difficult to respond to that curiosity at the moment. Now, I was told that I should go home and, look at the internet or buy a catalog and or buy an audio tour. But I find that, and maybe I should do that, but I think that it makes a lot of sense to have some information right by the artwork, so that when my curiosity is at the highest, I can actually act on that. Furthermore, I think that there's lots of art that you really actually need some information to enter into it. I could give an example of Martha Rossler's piece, which is, I believe it's called The Bowery and Two Systems of Description or Two Systems of Representation, something like that. And it was made in the 70s. And it's a series of photographs of storefronts and sidewalks in a fairly rundown part of the city, maybe with bottles, empty alcohol bottles lying around, that sort of a thing. You don't see any people, and then next to those photographs on the wall are a number of words that if you're familiar with the slang in the United States, you realize that those words are names for empty bottles, like dead soldier, or I don't know. I mean, that's the one that I can remember most clearly. But she has maybe 50, or I don't know. There's many, many terms that are references to empty alcohol bottles. And also, if you're from the United States, you know that this part of New York City for many years was Skid Row. It was the place where homeless people and alcoholics would just hang out on these doorsteps. And of course, the work has a lot to do with describing this problem without romanticizing this image of an alcoholic who's, falling down on the street or something like that. That's why you don't see any people in these pictures. I don't think you can understand. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's an art professional, but who's not from the United States, and she thought it was she thought it was poetry. She had no idea that those words were all names for empty bottles. And
Yeah, same with me.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that this is a situation where if you're going to use this work, which makes very specific references, cultural references, then I think you have to offer those up to the audience. And I don't think you can fully understand Rossler's project, which is about representation, and it's also about not romanticizing the poor, not romanticizing the unemployed, not making the poor an object of somebody's, beautiful photograph. I mean, she's very, very much trying to undermine that.